Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Greg, Paul, and Elliot. This is a big fight breakdown video for the massive undisputed heavyweight title fight happening in Saudi Arabia on February the 17th between Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk. Gents, one of the biggest fights we'll see in our generation. Really, we've not had an undisputed heavyweight title fight for so many years. I don't think Paul probably wasn't alive the last time there was one, if we're being honest. So it's a big fight, bit nervous, bit excited, but looking forward to breaking it down with all of you. First talking point we are going into is Tyson Fury in decline? We've not seen him at a high level of activity for a while now. He just had the one fight in 2023 that was against Francis Ngannou. We all know what happened there. 2022 fought Dillian Whyte at Wembley Stadium, which wasn't a hugely competitive fight. That wasn't necessarily his fault. And then fought a fairly underwhelming fight against Derek Chisora later that year. Greg, I'll go to you first. Is Tyson Fury in decline?
It's very difficult to say, Elliot, because he's always really been up and down in his career, hasn't he? He goes from great performances against Vladimir Klitschko to I think it was previously being decked by a cruiserweight and Steve Cunningham. So he's always been one of these guys. He's been up, he's been down. It's difficult to say. I mean, he's still a good age for a heavyweight, but the honest answer is I really don't know. He's just always been a very, very odd character, Tyson Fury. So it's difficult to tell.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think with the Ngannou fight, I think you could put it down to him being in decline, but you could put it down to him not really taking the fight seriously, not training properly. And I feel like one thing I would say about Tyson Fury is when it matters, he rises to the occasion and kind of gets the job done. He has stayed undefeated for a reason. Paul, I'll go to you next. Do you think Tyson Fury's in decline?
Yeah, man, I think it's in a really interesting point, and I'm kind of edging towards the fact that you know what, we might have seen his better days. And that's no slight on Tyson Fury. Everyone has their day, and whether we like it or not, no matter who you are, sometimes you'll just start to decline ever so slightly. And I think we might have seen that. Think what you've mentioned there. I'm not just basing that off the fact that the Ngannou performance, and not just basing it on that. I think what you said is kind of correct. I think he maybe did. I think he maybe kind of overlooked Ngannou and thought this guy can't really do anything for me. I'm not saying that Fury's going to ever have a six pack or whatever, but I think even for Fury standards, I think he was potentially a little bit out of shape for the Ngannou fight. And then his two fights before that were both really uncompetitive. So, preparation maybe in hindsight wasn't ideal for the Ngannou fight, but I still do think that he maybe is on the decline. I think when you look at the Wilder third fight, yes, he won the fight via knockout himself in stunning style, but that will have taken a lot out of him and put some miles on the clock because he was tagged an awful lot in that fight as well, even back to the first Deontay Wilder fight. So I'm thinking maybe that his best days are potentially behind him, but again, I don't want that to be a massive criticism of Tyson Fury. He's a credible world champion and stuff, but I think every dog has their day, and potentially we have seen the best version of Tyson Fury already.
Yeah, quite possibly. 35 years old, 35 fights. Obviously, he had that period of we called his career where he kind of ballooned up massively in weight, and I think it was around 2.5 years he was out of the ring, and possibly that could be that could stop him from fighting to his late 30s. Elliot, what are your thoughts on this? Is Fury in decline?
Yeah, I actually agree with what Greg's saying. I think it's almost impossible to say. I think I don't necessarily think he's going to improve anymore, but it was a case of whether he's at that peak that he kind of is at and whether he's managed to sustain that. I agree with what you're saying as well around the Ngannou fight. I don't really read actually anything into that. I just saw that as more of a kind of cash grab against someone who he knew probably couldn't trouble him and overlooked it and wasn't in shape. And you know what it's like when you get complacent in anything, you do kind of get surprised often. I think he just got surprised, but equally, I'm not going to sit here and say Ngannou's a better boxer than him. But then, we also mentioned Chisora, who, was essentially his friend. That was a bit of a kind of cash grab for Chisora there as well, a bit of a gilded handshake into retirement possibly. So I don't read anything into that either. And Dillian Whyte, look, at the time we fought Dillian Whyte, there was people at, this outlet included that was saying, Dillian Whyte was, a feared heavyweight that had been avoided by everyone else, and he had the left hook that could possibly stop the fight and all that sort of stuff. And he beat Dillian Whyte to the point where it's almost embarrassing in how uncompetitive it was. So I just feel like what Greg said as well, you get to he'll raise his game essentially, depending on who he's fighting. And I just feel like we've seen that before. We saw it with Klitschko, we saw it with Wilder. White was a potential banana skin. We saw him raise. He turned up that night as well. So I fully expect him to kind of get to that level actually in this fight. Like I said, I don't think he's going to improve, but I think it's too premature to sit there and say that he's actually in decline based off what we've seen.
We shall see. I think another factor here is he's obviously had that Ngannou fight, which didn't, he won the fight in the end, but it didn't go well for him. That was on October 21st. Less than 4 months later, February 17th. He's got a big challenge in front of him in Oleksandr Usyk. So it's kind of going from a really bad performance to getting in shape and putting in a really good performance in the space of less than 4 months, which I don't think will be easy to do. Elliot, I'll stick with you. If Usyk wins February 17th, where is he on your pound for pound list? I think a lot of people have Crawford/Inoue in their top 2. Maybe not everybody does. Some people will have Usyk at 3, maybe not. There's other names you could throw in there, Dimitri Bivol, Canelo Alvarez being them as well. Where would Usyk be in your pound for pound list if he is victorious?
It's not even recency bias. I'd put him at 1, frankly, just for the fact that he would obviously have come up the size difference. The thing, I'd have Crawford at 2, probably, and Inoue at 3. And the reason I say that is because, Inoue gets, I suppose, a little bit of criticism for fighting in Japan a lot. We look at what Usyk's done on the road as well. And if he comes in and beats someone who, stature-wise, is bigger than anyone he will have faced, and has ability to move and has punch power as well, I think the fact that he'd have cleaned up 2 divisions in that way would put him at that level where I'd have to say number 1 for me, frankly. Just given the 2 divisions as well, I think it can be slightly easier. Maybe I'm showing ignorance here, but slightly easier to move in those lower divisions where, like lesser poundage can essentially take you up to a world title. Whereas this is obviously a big leap from cruiser to heavyweight. And Tyson Fury is another massive heavyweight. So for me, I'd put Usyk at 1 just based on summiting 2 mountains in that way.
Yeah, he's kind of got all those road warrior wins, hasn't he? And I think he would go from entering the heavyweight division to being undisputed champion in a very short space of time, despite naturally being a cruiserweight. So it would be very impressive, and I'm not sure everyone would disagree with you there. Paul, would Usyk be number 1 in your list?
Do you know what, mate? Elliot makes a really good case for him to be number 1 there, and it's really difficult to disagree with it. Personally, I'm maybe having 2 or 3. I think those top 3, if he is to win, I don't really think there's any argument other than Inoue, Usyk, and Crawford in the top 3 in whatever order you have it in. But then again, someone that has, you have Usyk first, someone has Inoue first, and I have Crawford first. Again, it's just a debate. I'm not going to dispute any of it. I think they're all credible top 3. So I definitely have them 2 or 3. Maybe not 1. I maybe still have Crawford above him, but then I'm a massive Terence Crawford fan. Not to say that I'm not a big Usyk fan, but I think that if he is to win this fight, the point that I really do agree with what Elliot said there, is the kind of the weight disparity almost jumping from cruiserweight to heavyweight. Yeah, it's 1 division, just like it is from moving from flyweight to super flyweight or bantamweight to super bantamweight, but the gulf and the metrics kind of he's not just jumping up 4 or 5 pounds, he's jumping up like 2 stone maybe in some cases or whatever. So yeah, I think you've got to take that into consideration. So I can really see what Elliot's saying, but I'm still going to put him at number 2. But yeah, definitely in the conversation for number 1 pound for pound if he wins.
I do have to respond that. Don't you think you're not giving Inoue enough credit there? Just if you consider Inoue started his career at light flyweight, is currently undisputed champion at super bantamweight. If Inoue was to kind of become champion at featherweight this year, would you put Inoue above Usyk, or would you still put him below, despite him being a world champion in that many weights?
I don't know, mate. I'd probably still have him below, just because I'm just going to sound like I'm hating on the lighter weights here. But I think it's easier to do that in the lighter weights. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it. I don't know whether that's just because for the heavyweight boxing as I'm a heavyweight myself probably, but I just kind of see your point. I really, really do. And again, I wouldn't have any arguments if you told me that I'm talking rubbish. But I'm just sticking with what I said.
That's a surprise because I know you're usually really positive about Inoue. But we'll move on from that. Greg, finish with you. Where would Usyk be in your list if he is victorious next month?
Yeah, I just probably want to start off by saying I think there's a not from this group or this video or anything, but I think there's an awful lot of disrespect that goes Canelo Alvarez's way now because of one bad night. The guy's beat everybody there is to beat, and every time he beats someone, there's always someone he's avoiding. Now it's David Benavidez. Don't believe it, but anyway, back on point. I agree with the new and Crawford being up there, but yeah, I think you've got to have Usyk at number one. If you consider what Elliot said, what Paul said, Usyk would be undisputed cruiserweight champion on the road, beating all these good guys, a lot of them undefeated. A prime Gassiev, to say that the guy steps up to heavyweight, beats Anthony Joshua twice and beats Tyson Fury. I think you've got to have the guy at number one if he's able to do that, and with all the things that go in his disadvantage, height, weight. So yeah, I'll keep it shorter and sweet. I think Usyk jumps to number one for me.
Yeah, there we have it. Look, pound for pound lists. I'm sure we could spend an hour just talking about where is Canelo, where's Bivol, where's Beterbiev, other great fighters as well. You could name, but pound for pound lists are one of those topics that people will never fully agree on. Just one of those things. Next topic, gents. Would this be the best win on both fighters' resumes? Tyson Fury, he obviously had those 3 fights against Wilder, 2 of them wins, one of them was a draw. A long time ago now, thought Vladimir Klitschko wasn't expected to win that fight, and he did win that fight quite convincingly. Usyk, I think Greg mentioned some of his wins there, kind of became undisputed cruiserweight champion, just kind of went on a world tour, beating some of the best cruiserweights in the world, Marius Bradis, Murat Gassiev. Some of these fighters were undefeated at the time that Usyk fought them as well. And he obviously has those 2 wins over Anthony Joshua. Paul, I'll go to you first. Regardless of who wins on February 17th, is that the best win on either fighter's resume, would you say?
I put Usyk at number one on Fury's resume if he's to win. I'd have him above Wilder. And obviously this is all in hindsight because look at the Wilder that performed against Joseph Parker. Looked like a broken fighter, but then you could argue that Fury was the man to break Wilder. So I see the points there. And obviously Klitschko reigning for so long when Fury beat him. But then obviously then you also look at Joshua fighting Klitschko after that. And yes, Klitschko just lost to Fury, but I think Joshua was able to stop him. Fury wasn't. So yeah, I think I put Usyk at the top of Fury's list. And yeah, you probably do have to put Fury at the top of Usyk's resume if he beats him. As much as that pains me to say, considering Anthony Joshua was on Usyk's resume twice, got to be real. I think you probably do have to have Tyson Fury at the top. So yeah, you know what, mate? I think it probably would be the best one on either man's resume.
Right, Greg, would you agree with Paul?
He makes a very, very good point. It's very hard to disagree with it. I think you guys know I'm not the biggest Tyson Fury fan these days, but what I would say is that what I think he done that night in Germany was absolutely remarkable. I don't think he gets given enough respect. Klitschko wasn't just beating guys, he was dominating them. And he went to Germany, stuck up for himself when it came to a canvas that they tried to slow Fury's feet down with and everything. He won the fight quite convincingly. And in Germany, I can't praise that one enough. I think with Usyk, I think with Anthony Joshua's re-emergence on the scene where he's looking like a bit of a force again with that performance against Wallen, I think both guys have probably got a win on the record that would par it. And I think for Usyk, it would be Joshua. For Tyson Fury, I think it would be Klitschko. But if they beat each other, I think that's on a par. That's their joint best wins. So yeah, I think they're both right at the top.
Great. Elliot, come to you finally. What is your response to this?
I agree with Paul in that I think Fury would be the best win on Usyk's CV, frankly. Just because there's the size difference again, and the fact that he can move. And obviously it's a weight which is above really naturally where I think Usyk probably is, body and stance wise. But I'm actually going to disagree on the Fury one. The reason I'm going to disagree is kind of what Greg was saying as well. Like I go back in time to when, Paul probably wasn't alive when Fury fought Klitschko either. So I think you go to that night. Fury was a massive. I can't emphasize how much of an underdog he was in that fight. He was going over to Germany, which is where Klitschko was based. I don't think Klitschko had lost in something like 8 years or something outrageous. And no one really gave it much of a chance. The style that Fury fought with at that time, which was obviously like boxing, but wasn't as refined as it is now either. Like you said, like Greg said, Cunningham got him over. Like he had vulnerabilities, frankly, and he was just like a bit of a big lump everyone expected to lose. So that win, I rate very, very highly. And then even to be honest with you, the Wilder wins where, Wilder touches you once, you go over. And let's not forget how many people he stopped. Granted, all right, they may not have been elite heavyweights, but he touched him. He had him over 5 times over that trilogy, and he still got up and kept coming where other people hadn't. So I think, to be honest with you, even though we can look at Deontay Wilder now, and as someone at the outlet wittily did say, the version of Deontay Wilder that's been in Mexico licking the backs of toads, and then managed to lose to Joe Parker isn't the sort of version I'm talking about. But to humble him in that way, I'd probably put Usyk. If he beats Usyk, maybe third. It seems, and that's not disrespecting Usyk. Usyk would be the best boxer he's beaten, 100%. But I just think he's significantly smaller than him in a way where the others weren't and didn't necessarily have the same aura. I don't think Usyk's got the aura, frankly, that Klitschko had at the time when Fury fought him. So for me, I wouldn't have him up there as Fury's best win, no.
Can always count on you to say something controversial. Thanks very much, Elliot, Greg. All right, gents. Appreciate your time as always. It is now prediction time. It's a big one. I believe Fury is still the slight favourite going into February 17th. Predictions can change. We'll be doing betting tips videos, weigh-in reactions, other debating topics as well. Please do check out all of that stuff on our channel. But yeah, just to finish this one off, gents, going to ask for a quick prediction and how your fighter wins this fight on February 17th. I'm going to give everyone 45 seconds. Paul, going to go to you first. Who wins and how?
I'm going to say that Oleksandr Usyk wins on points, and the reason I'm saying that is because everyone's always said that a big guy beats a little guy, no matter how elite big guy or whatever the saying is. You know what I'm trying to say, and I think that I would have agreed with that. I would always have said, you know what, I think Fury will just be too big for him. But no, I can't get out of my head the Fury performance against Ngannou, whether he overlooked him or not. And then obviously not having had really competitive fights before that. When was the last competitive fight he had? The Wilder one, long time ago now. Whereas Usyk's had quite a lot of competitive ones recently against the 2 Joshua fights, and the WA one even was contentious as well. So yeah, I think I'm going to go Usyk on points is my final prediction.
We've not got time to talk about the first Joshua fight being competitive, so we'll discuss that on another video. Elliot, your prediction and how your fighter wins.
You and I have done videos before on this, looking at Tyson Fury as a heavyweight. I'm still going to back Tyson Fury, frankly, to beat Oleksandr Usyk on points. I just think I'm looking at him, he's got a 6-inch height advantage, but he's got a 7-inch reach advantage, which is massive for me, frankly. And I just think that Tyson Fury can go backwards, sideways, forward. I just don't see how Usyk's going to slip that jab sufficiently enough to land enough punches to outpoint him, frankly, unless Tyson Fury is obviously off it. But I just think Tyson Fury will just kind of keep him at range or just hug him essentially and just grind out a points victory.
Yeah. I'll go next. So yeah, we're at 1-1. I'll go next. I'm going for a fairly ugly win for Fury. I think he will just lean on Usyk for a lot of the fights. But it will be really tricky. I think Fury's looked at Usyk in the last couple of years and thought, I'm not sure how I'm going to beat you. I'm not sure how I'm going to work you out. So I think it could be a bit of an ugly affair. But I just think Fury is just that bit too big for Usyk, who is still naturally a cruiserweight in my eyes. Greg, we'll end things with you. Who wins this fight and how?
I told you guys 3 or 4 years ago, Oleksandr Usyk was going to go up to heavyweight and beat Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. And I'm not changing my mind. I think it's a fight that can potentially be so one-sided for Fury if he gets everything right because of the height, the weight. But he's not fought anyone as clever, as crafty as Oleksandr Usyk. The last guy that he fought that was potentially that clever was Steve Cunningham, and he had fits until he stopped him. Oleksandr Usyk isn't going to stand still like Steve Cunningham did and let him pound him on the ropes. This is going to be a tricky fight. I think unless there's a robbery, I just think Usyk is going to outmaneuver him, and he's going to think I'm mad here. Don't count out a stoppage to the body. Usyk is extremely clever, and I think Tyson Fury, he's going to be made to work an awful lot in this fight. Keep that in your minds as well. I'm going to say Oleksandr Usyk points is my prediction. Don't count Elliott stoppage.
If I could just respond to you, Greg, because you have flip-flopped a bit over the last couple of years.
Yes.
If you don't mind me saying, like, why I remember you saying to us, we've known each other a long time now, 3-4 years ago, thought Usyk was going to win. You're saying Usyk now, but in the middle of that, if you don't mind me saying, you have gone with Fury. If you don't mind me asking, what's been your thought process in the last year or so? Is it the Ngannou fight, like Paul has said, or is it something else? What's changed your mind?
The fight, I've overall always thought Usyk would win, but there is a point where you start to doubt yourself. Like it's the same as when we have other big fight breakdowns. When you really think about someone at their best, you stick to your opinion. But I do think, when I really think about it, Fury did have a period where he looked very good. He looked very good against Dillian White. But the Ngannou fight, it does stick in my mind. Even I just look at the way Usyk. I think it's basically the way Usyk fought Joshua again the second time and beat him the second time, and I thought, okay, so I think the Ngannou fight's probably got a lot to do with it, Elliot. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Usyk.
Completely fair. All right, that's it. We're undecided. We're Tyson Fury 2, Oleksandr Usyk 2. We will see what happens on February the 17th. Greg, Elliot, and Paul, thank you all very much for your time, and I will speak to you again soon.